to Stretch and Release. My name is Wade. Today we're going to be focusing on traps, back, chest, mostly things to help your shoulders feel better. Our first thing we're going to do is with the lacrosse ball. So if you happen to have one of those, feel free to grab it. And we're going to be scooching back here towards the wall. So as you're rolling, our first thing we're going to be rolling is our traps. So when you're rolling your traps, you'll place the ball against the wall and you're trying to target right up here on the upper traps. So this is a good way to, you'll feel a little bit through your neck, but a lot of people who tend to kind of shrug forward, if you're shrugging forward, typing, driving, and put your shoulders in that position, this is trying to release some of that tension through the upper traps. So trying to roll out right there, kind of right here from the base, you can kind of get on top of your traps to right here on the back there. You're trying to roll all through just your left right now. So trying to roll through the left. If you find any tender spots that feel a little bit tight, a little bit tender, maybe there's just a little knot there or a bump, go ahead and just keep some pressure on that. You'll keep that pressure against it, holding it steady for about 20 seconds before you switch to the other side. We'll go about 30 to 45 seconds here on each side. So you should be winding down on the left. Go ahead and start shifting over to the right. You might find that one side has a few more knots or feels a little bit different than the other side. If you happen to have one side that feels a little bit different, feel free to spend a little longer on that side. So what you typically want is that both sides feel pretty even if they both have a ton of knots. A lot of times that's better than one side feeling really tight and one side feeling really loose. That tends to leave you just a little bit off balance. You'll have one side that rises up more. It can cause some imbalances, and it's definitely good to be at least evenly tight than have one side different. But you should be rolling out that right side, looking for different spots in there that might feel a little bit tender. For me and my traps, this is one spot that usually feels really good. You'll notice when people give massages, the first thing they dig into is that neck up there. A lot of people have a lot of tightness here, so take your time, no rush. If you want to pause the video, take a little bit longer there, that's fine. But our next thing, you should be winding down there, grabbing your foam roller, is rolling through the lats and the chest. So when you're done, if you pause that video, if you didn't pause that video, that's fine too. Go ahead and grab that foam roller. We'll be laying on the ground. You're gonna have your arm overhead, rolling through your lats. So lats right on the side here. It should be kind of the back half of your side is where you want to start. You'll be right above your belly button, going all the way up into your armpit. So as you're rolling the lats, it helps a lot to have your lats stretched, and your lats get stretched by having that hand overhead. So hand overhead, you'll feel that all through the side. You'll feel usually the most tension right here on the top of your lats, close to the armpit. So if you feel some knots there, it feels a little bit tighter, or it feels very tender, feel free to spend a little bit of time there. And sometimes instead of actually moving my body around, if I find a tender spot, I'll just move my arm side to side, or maybe rock back and forth. Those are some different techniques to help dig into there a little bit better, because sometimes that spot will be so tight, so tender, there might be a really big knot there that even rocking side to side is a little bit painful. So you're not looking for painful right now. You're looking for mildly uncomfortable. So a little bit different. But once you've rolled those lats a little bit, feel free to kind of shift your weight forward. You should feel that in the front of your chest, kind of rolling forward into your chest, and then back up. So right now you're making big rocking motions back and forth, trying to loosen your lats and your chest. Once you get in the chest, you can kind of come up and down a little bit, and then back to the lats. Doing that rocking motion, you'll feel a lot of muscles through your chest. This is going to be the most tender spot. There's a lot of muscles that kind of come into the shoulder there. So that's one area to put a lot of tension and focus into. And give that about 10 more seconds. When you're finished, go ahead and rotate to that opposite side. With that right arm overhead coming into your lats. Focusing all the way down, close to your belly button, all the way up to the armpit. And many times you'll find one of those spots that you want to just lay on for a little while. That's totally fine. I have a spot right here. I'm just going to keep some tension and pressure on for about 20 seconds. If I want to rotate my arm around a little bit, I might find that putting my hand in a different position helps hit a different part of that muscle. Your lat can move around when you move your shoulder around. Just lifting the arm up and down. I'll feel my lat moving around. So lots of ways to get in there. And once you've spent some time on that lat, go ahead and roll forward, feeling that through your chest, and then back up. And again, with that chest, when you're rolling forward, you can move that arm around a little bit. You might feel a little different. Or you can kind of roll up and down a little bit into that chest, and then back. So we're spending a lot of time on the lats and just a little bit on the chest here, but go ahead and go for about 10 more seconds. Feeling that stretching through your lats, through your chest. And then like I mentioned before, one of today's biggest issues is helping strengthen the shoulder. So right now you're helping release all that tension and some typically chronically tight areas around the shoulder. So a lot of times if you have shoulder injuries, maybe a little bit of shoulder pain, you'll have a lot of times tight lats or a tight chest. Those are pretty common. You might have tight upper traps. So we're going to spend this next little bit. I think we have some time to focus on some stretching before we work on strengthening a little bit of the rotator cuff. So the stretch we're going to do, our first one is going to be a chest stretch. You'll find a table, you'll find a wall, or just something that you can come next to. Hand out straight, you put that on the edge of the table as you open up your chest the opposite direction. We're doing this from your hands all the way up to your chest. You can also do this from the elbows is another common way. Right now we're choosing the hands because you get more muscles stretched. You also feel a little bit through the bicep, a little bit through the forearm if you're letting your fingers come back. But as you do this, you should be thinking about keeping the bottom part of your hand in contact with the wall or with the table, and you want to stretch all the way across like that. You'll find if you're stretching with your hand rotated this way, you're not going to stretch your chest as much. So hand rotated like that, and you'll feel that get a little bit deeper in your chest. Sometimes you can even just slightly resist against, and you'll feel that chest kind of light up as it stretches. So you're not trying to knock over the table with your arm, but you're trying to just add a couple pounds of pressure there, and then open up and stretch a little bit deeper. Go ahead and switch sides, come into that opposite arm. Thinking about all those same cues as you stretch. As you stretch, you're also paying attention to what your shoulder is doing. If you happen to have any shoulder pain or some issues there, you might find that as you do this, your shoulder wants to rise up to your neck. Possibly your shoulder wants to rotate with that top part of the hand first. Try and push your shoulder down and back. You should feel a little bit of tightness through your lats as you're trying to keep your shoulder in place. And then you should be pushing with that bottom part of the hand. You should notice some big differences if you want to do it just a little out of form for a second or two. And when you correct yourself back into form, you'll feel a lot more through your chest and through this area right here, which is your biggest target. Once you finish that, we'll do one stretch for your lats. If you have a table that's pretty sturdy next to you, you can do this by holding onto a table if it's the right height. But what you are doing is allowing your arm to get pulled down and allowing your neck to get pulled the opposite way. If you don't have a table and you want to do this seated instead, you can sit on that hand. You'll want to tighten your lats, bring that shoulder not only down, but you want to try and bring that shoulder back too. If you focus on just down, a lot of people have a tendency to, when they lower it, they'll lower it and round it forward. You're not quite getting the same stretch there, so try and keep your lats back, or your lats tight, and your shoulder down and back, allowing that arm to get pulled down. As you tilt your head over to the side, you'll feel that through the neck, you'll feel that through the traps. Right now it's an awesome stretch for both. Go ahead and spend about 10 more seconds stretching that side. And if you happen to be grabbing a table and doing it there instead, actually I like this version a little bit better. I feel like it can pull down a little bit further and I can still keep a good form while I move my neck to the side. But go ahead and switch arms. Take a few breaths here. I tend to do a lot of talking during this class, but a lot of times when you're doing this at home, the deeper breaths you can take, the more you'll find you're able to relax. So every exhale, see if you can move your neck just another inch or two. Taking nice slow inhales, nice slow exhales. Try and relax, control your breathing. One more deep breath in. And slowly exhaling out. And rest. All right, when you're ready, we have one more exercise we'll do. This one isn't as much stretching and releasing. This one is a little bit more building some strength through some of those areas that we didn't just stretch. So many shoulder problems and just people in general will have that tight lat, tight chest, Your shoulders have a tendency to round forward. So today we're going to work on external rotation. We'll do this with a dumbbell. You can do this with just your hand. You can do this with a 5-pound plate, a can of pasta, really anything that you have at home. But you'll be grabbing that weight, and the motion that you're going to do, we're going to do it in a laying position, is just there to there. So it looks really easy, but you still want to choose a very low weight because keeping the form correct on this is a big deal. You can feel it in a couple different areas depending on what your form looks like. So I'm going to cue a few things here, and then I'm going to take a break. I'll re-cue it, and then we'll start the actual exercise. So first, I'm going to have you put a towel kind of on your hips. That's going to help raise your arm up a little bit. You can grab that weight if you want, or just use your hand, but you'll be laying on your side. If you want to put that foam roller under your head for some support, you can. But otherwise, you can hang your head out here, and you're just going to be rotating that arm up and back down, trying to keep this pinned. You want your lats tight, and you want that arm kind of sucked to the side as you rotate up and down. Go ahead and do that 2 or 3 times. And right now, if you find that you're feeling a little bit in that front part of your shoulder, there's a good chance that your shoulder has a tendency to round forward when you do this. So it's hard to see on camera, but when you're doing this, laying to the side in a laying position, most people sleep laying, so you have a tendency to kind of round forward as you sleep. And as you lay, your body's going to have a tendency to do that same thing where you kind of round forward and you open up like that. So instead, think really hard about keeping your lats tight. The goal is that you feel this on the back part of your shoulder. So if you're not feeling the back and you're feeling the front, there's a good chance your scapula is kind of coming forward and your shoulders are starting to round like that. So again, we'll try this and we'll do 10 reps laying on your side. And I'm going to come a little bit closer to the camera, talk about the shoulder a little bit. So 10 reps, ready? Grabbing that weight in your hand, getting your shoulder back, your lats are tight, you're not letting that shoulder kind of creep forward. And 1, 2, 3, doing good. 4, nice, slow and controlled. 5, and again, if you're feeling that in the front right now, 6, move that shoulder back, make sure it's not rounding forward. 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, move to that opposite side. As you're moving around, one thing that helps me on here is thinking not to make the biggest movement possible. It doesn't matter how high I lift that weight. I could just lift that weight this far. If that's all I can stay with my shoulder in that correct position, that's fine. It doesn't matter that I come all the way up and all the way down. If I have to round forward to get it up, then it's probably a good sign that I need to lower the weight or I need to just work on that correct range of motion. But we'll get in 10 reps. Again, thinking about your shoulder, your scapula, push back and down. Your lats are tight right now. Your elbow is glued to the side with the towel right here. For 1. Don't worry about the size of the movement. 2. Keep that control. Focus on the back part of your shoulder. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. Nice deep breaths. 8. Exhale for 9. Inhale. And 10. All right. So that's a common exercise. You'll see people do it in the gym all the time, whether it be standing with a cable, with some bands, or with a dumbbell. But it's also one of the most commonly done wrong exercises. So when you're doing that, keep practicing keeping that shoulder back, trying to keep your shoulder from rounding forward. It's really common. It's really natural for it to roll forward. You just have to really fight that and focus on keeping that shoulder back, and that's going to help strengthen a lot of the muscles on the back part of your rotator cuff, your infraspinatus, and a lot of things that will help keep your shoulder safer. But that's it for today. Hopefully you had some fun. You feel tons better. If you have any shoulder injuries, definitely recommend doing this one 2 or 3 more times this week. It's a great one for shoulder injuries. If you have a lot of office work, it's still great for that too. This helps prevent shoulder injuries. So glad to have you guys, and we'll see you next week.